Hi, we're back again with another interview. I'm with a very personal, close friend of mine. I've known him since I was a little kid. He has been my teacher. This is Master Dhasan Muhammad from Delaware. He's been all around. I think you live in Greensboro, North Carolina right now.
Greensboro. Yes.
Greensboro, sorry. If you could introduce yourself, you can do it better than I can.
I'm Dhasan Muhammad. Not real formal. My designation and title in my system is Fossil Hook, and that's the equivalent of what you would say in other systems of founder and grandmaster in a system. I've been involved in martial arts for 47 years. I started when I was 10 years old, 10 years into my journey, as I would say, and now I'm 57 years into my journey. Um, been blessed to train with some of the best and the best, recognized and unrecognized, and it's helped me to progress. Watching Sifu Grady's development on all levels, martially, socially, his contributions that he takes into communities that are positive. I'm honored that I'm getting this opportunity to be interviewed by him, and not just because of our relationship through the years, but just seeing a person mature from youth onto where we are now. This is fitting for me to have to interview me. It's personal and bonding, but at the same time, thinking of you as a young person, and then seeing you now, these things. Part of martial arts to me is about training. Our teachers always tell us, I'm going to help the person. He never said anything about Kung Fu. He never said anything about anything else. You there, sir?
Yeah, I'm
Because you
here.
froze.
Yeah, it was getting glitchy. It's okay.
Okay. He always said, yeah. He said nothing about Kung Fu really. He said, I'm gonna help you be a better person.
Zidak.
And that's the truth. So I can say that transferred over to all of us. That's what we put into life, to be better and help enhance our communities, things which in essence to me is part of what martial arts is about. Developing a person. If you talk to, I've heard Yip Man's son talk about what Wing Chun was, and he said it was to develop a better person. You know, most people will say that to develop the person, whether it's just they're seeing their flaws in themselves and developing that and sharing, or that's what's missing is the development of self to me. That's part of what us talking about tradition is what's missing, not the physicality, not the cardio, not the I can knock somebody in the head. Which one is going to go further? How many people you killed or how many people you healed or helped?
Mm.
The killing, mentally, physically, or spiritually, you're going to have all kind of enemies. People going to be coming for you or whatever, some kind of way on the media or something. But when people can say, well, Sifu Grady taught me such and such, or he shared such and such, or when he was in my community, I felt safe, or Mr. D Asambi here in Greensboro called me Mr. D. Mr. D, such and such and such and such. And because of him, that goes a lot further. And that to me is the essence of what it's all about, cultivating yourself so that, you can leave something great and you can be the best that you can be here.
So you started when you were 11, you said? I think you started earlier than that, a lot earlier. Yeah, you started, I think you're
1975.
Yeah, so
1975.
why did you first start training?
I didn't like to fight. And my father was to take it back further, my uncle, my mother's brother, was in the Navy, and they're young. My mother had me when she was 28. So they were young. So my uncle was in the Navy and he came back from his training, and him and my father, they were like buddies. So my uncle come back having some martial arts training, tells my father, hey, throw something at me. And my father couldn't do anything. So that was his basic first introduction to martial arts. So they got my father interested in martial arts, which got me into martial arts because my father got interested. And then I believe that, I don't know how he found, he would be, I guess now, Grandmaster Tom Cully. He was in the Air Force in Dover, Delaware, and he taught a class there. in 1975 on Main Street in Dover, Delaware. And my father went, and my father took me. So it was, at that time, it was kind of expensive for us because we had to travel, like 45 minutes an hour to the class. So I didn't go long, maybe 6 months, but that was my first introduction to a class setting on martial arts and things. And after that, I just trained techniques from my father until I was in other things that I saw, and just had a kind of natural affinity for things, picking up things. And until I met another person in karate. And then I met one of my main teachers, Doug Davis, when I was 14. And so I started training with him. And he actually was training me when he was just a green belt, because I was the experimentation. I was the crash dummy. I was learning things from him, but I was the person to get experimented on, Will this hurt?
That sounds about right. It sounds about right.
So then he started his formal class, after that. And where we were in Delaware, being 3 counties, we were at the lower county, which was more rural. There was no Kung Fu class. And so he started the first Kung Fu class. And well, there were karate classes, there were Ishin-Ryu classes and Taekwondo classes, but there were no formal Kung Fu classes. And so he started the first formal Kung Fu class down there. And so at that time, a lot of other people, I didn't have any exposure to them other than seeing them in magazines. When Kung Fu people went to tournaments, they did forms. When it came to fighting, you never saw them on the floor hardly. So no matter where you went, basically, you had to prove yourself fighting. So I became one of his fighters, because we had to kind of establish ourselves, and fighting was the way you were going to do it. He was a green belt, and I fought at a tournament in Georgetown, Delaware, and there was a promoter and a black belt there named Mr. Stolzenbach.
Yes.
And I fought as a white belt, and I won just like hands down. And I don't know, it must have been pretty impressive because he came over to me right after I fought. Now I'm a white belt, and he comes in, he's talking to me. He's like, so who's your teacher? Like, my teacher is Doug Davis. I said, well, it wasn't Seabach at the time, it was Doug Davis. He said, I haven't heard of him, but when he starts coming, tell him come to the black belt meeting. So it must have impacted him what I was blessed to contribute at that time. And so it kind of started us on our way. So in Delaware, I'm part of that Delaware history. Specifically, back in the 90s, they had the first Battle of the Belt. A promoter in Salisbury, I was blessed to be the first person to win the Battle of the Belt. And
who was that against again? Eric?
Mr. Smith.
No,
Smith. Oh yeah.
You fought Eric.
Oh yes, sir. I did. I happened to see him online not too long ago, and he confessed to me that he used to have his grandparents take pictures of me doing postures because he was fascinated at the postures and things we used to do. So that was part of my formative years, staying in Delaware and training those things. But I looked back and I recognized that I wasn't, some people go to a class and they're consistently there all the time. I wasn't consistently there because I was always working. I started working when I was 11 years old. So I'm 14, I'm working in a restaurant illegally, but I was working. I wasn't in class all the time, but I would train the things that the teacher taught me. And then I would visit him on the weekends at his apartment and train things. And so that continued on until 1989. I got my black sash from him. And he used to always say, well, one day I'm not going to have anything else to teach you. Yeah, okay, this is my teacher. There's no way that can ever happen. Well, that was a very impactful day because we were at a major tournament and he got the microphone and he introduced me and he let everybody know that was my day I'm getting promoted. And he came to me and looked at my shoulder and he said, today's the day. I don't have anything else to teach you. And I couldn't even really absorb the day after that. All these black ropes was touching my hand. It's like sort of like a movie. Everything kind of went in tunnel. And I just was impacted by what he said. Like, I'm not going to have my teacher. What do you mean? Like, where are you going? You know, it was really emotional for me because I was used to having this man to go to. I was used to learning these things from him. And then he says, you don't have nothing else to teach me. And so I got my black sash then. And I think I sat on that for a couple of weeks, just really going through what I perceived was kind of just a disconnection in it. It threw me off. So it set me on my path to start to look inside myself from what he taught me and whatever else that I might have wanted to pursue. And so my next teacher was Grandmaster James Allen, who started a system he called the Siamese, which was based on the Siamese cat and his experimentations with the cat itself, watching them fight and move and imitating those things. And he was in Wilmington, Delaware, which is about an hour away. So I wasn't there with him all the time either. I would go visit sometimes on the Friday night class. And then I would go visit him every once in a while on the weekend. He would let me come stay and I would train with him. And so in the course of that time, I met my teacher in Long Fist in basic Wing Chun. He studied with William Shung. Sifu Samad Haq is Coach Haq. He's in the boxing world now. And so he taught me Long Fist, but he didn't teach Long Fist like just forms. He taught us to exchange with each other, how to use the techniques and how to fight with them. I learned how to really interact with weapons, not just do forms of weapons. We had to fight with the weapons. If he showed us certain maneuvers and things and angles, we had to fight each other with it. And we had to do it at different speeds. We had to do it at slow speed, then a little faster speed, then a medium speed, then you do it full speed. So you got to see mechanics. You got to see a lot of things that you wouldn't see just going full speed. And then when you got to be full speed, you were a lot more skilled, I feel. Like even the same thing today, I think people go too fast with certain things. And so you miss things. And then that going into the internal world, you're definitely going to miss things. Because I only had 3 Long Fist forms. 1, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And that's still kind of how I kind of look at things now, other than skill sets with things. And I've viewed some of the thing with the spear. I have a friend who teaches fitness and everything, and now he's a yoga instructor, and he was talking, and he was like, people don't want to spend time inside. So I think that's the greater part, is that everything's external. So it's like, what's the quickest resolve? Like, I can Google something. So I can pull a gun, boom, done. You know, they don't want to have to put time in things. I think that being the way it is how a person develops themselves as a person. The difference in the MMA and a jiu-jitsu type of person, according to what type of jiu-jitsu, is that now they got it out here as sport. And still it's that quick thing. You know, you go in and you get yourself a little bit in shape, you get some cardio, you get a couple to the other, you figure to knock somebody out, what have you. But you're not developing yourself. If that's what's important to you, it seems like, you know, that's a big, you know, that's the thing. That's a subjective thing about how people develop themselves and what they want to get. I asked myself the same question you asked not long ago, like, why am I doing all this? But all this isn't, okay, like I deal a lot now with mudras and a lot of things with healing and acupressure and things like that. So, but that's part of life for me. You know, I can see it, the results, but you still got to take time to put in. And people aren't putting in time. And since they're not putting in time, they're not getting any results or anything, you know, and everything is like everything is, let's be fast food, you know, with everything. So that diminishes the person. Okay, I watched this film called Dunkaholics. These kids can jump and touch the top of the backboard now. Who wants to play basketball with these guys? Now they're doing this. What? Where's the fundamentals of the game? Where's the passing? Where's all the other things? You know, now it's becoming just showmanship. So people are used to this. This is what's perpetuated in the media so much. Quick fix stuff. But I think it's according to the journey that a person wants. Part of what I want is peace. Part of what I want is comprehension of myself. What I want is positive, energetic things going into my atmospheres and environments, my immediate environment, and when I go out in space. But if you don't work on cultivating yourself, you're not going to have that out there. You know what I mean? You've been in from the so-called traditional martial arts all the way through to the tactical things. So you've got a wide perspective, where I've as well as been working, taught law enforcement people and worked in the prisons and all these situations. So I got those things to compound on. And, when you look at the word tradition, it's like they say, things that don't change. They're going to be foundational things that don't change. It's going to, you got the same mechanics for walking, each person, basically. People got different rhythms when they walk, but you got the same mechanics. Right. Now unless people elevate themselves and everybody learns how to levitate, and then there ain't no gas prices. You know what I mean? You got certain basic things that, that exist that you're going to be involved in. So I think it's just each person and their approach. I don't knock any of it in the sense, unless it's hurting people. Mm-hmm. In the sense of you're teaching people things that are dangerous. There's things that I look at that I really don't agree with when I look at certain types of approaches, but that's just me. If you can say that, I don't believe you live in a knife culture. And some of the things that I've seen, when you say that's actually what they practice in those villages, and they live with knives every day. I'm impressed for that. And then being in America, bringing things from other countries, we live on mostly concrete. Mm-hmm. A lot of these ground things that people do are not relevant. I teach ground recovery. I don't teach ground fighting.
Right.
Because you don't even want to say the word. I don't teach an opponent. I teach a distractor, because it's all in how you perceive it in your mind. And if I teach you that's an opponent, your mind can trigger a different way. If that's an opponent, it can make you tense up. I work at a behavioral health hospital. And because sometimes I can't use some of the things that I know, it causes stress inside myself, because my natural instinct for certain things is to move and do certain things. So I look at that, and so in developing myself, I have to address things a certain way in this working setting that I'm in. But you got to love what you do. Is it developing you? What is the importance for yourself? People go to the gym, they get big, they get whatever's, and some of that's vanity. Mm-hmm. Now, yeah. I believe in functional strength, but then functional strength comes from a lot of different things. It can come from exercising, as well as if you're involved in the processes and you have a good internal process, it comes from that as well. So I think it's what people, they want to evolve in where they want to go. When I was younger, it wasn't that I wanted to fight; it was that I didn't like to fight. And my parents were concerned because I didn't like to fight. Because I didn't like to fight, they wanted me to go somewhere where they felt somebody was going to teach me how to fight. But I always had a natural ability. I was always blessed with a natural ability. I just didn't like to fight, just for the sake of fight.
You were always agile. That's the best way I could put it. You were very agile back then.
For the sake of fighting, I didn't like to fight. I could take the hits, I could give the hits, I could shut it down, but I didn't like to fight. That's a different type of person. But it's interesting to even see those type of people, which are different. You look at Mike Tyson now. I heard an interview with him recently. He says, I don't want to be a great person. Somebody says he's a great person. He said, because I know a lot of great people that are good at one specific thing, but they're an asshole at everything else. He said, I want to be a good person.
That's a big, if you look at his development, that's a big, you know what I mean? Like big step for him.
But then he also can say that there's times that he don't fight, that he feels weak because he's used to that rush. Mm-hmm. If he's not hitting anything and he's so used to solving things with physicality, it's to your approach. And it's, I can only Yes, sir. I can only speak from what I see from his interviews because I'm not his friend.
Right.
But it's like he's trying to balance himself out and just have peace in his life because he's had the violence. He's had all kind of other traumas, and he's been betrayed. All these different types of things. You know, some people are ruthless from that. Some people go his route. He's an intelligent man. You know, people take him for granted. The man is sharp.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it's all in what you want to do. I
Go ahead.
my long fist instructor, Sifu Hawk, used to say, "Go slow, fast as you can."
Mm.
So that started, resonating in my mind about the slowness, and it'll make you pay attention to things and make you go inside, you know. So that really started my internal spiritual growth with those things like that. It still was external, doing things and was blessed to be athletic, but it started going inside, which really helped a lot of things grow. So after that, that's when I started going into studying different things in African martial arts. And I was blessed to come along. Baba Kalindi, God rest his soul, he passed away 2 years ago. He had camps down in Georgia. And so he would bring some of the best that he knew to the camps in Georgia. And so that exposed me to a lot of different people, mercenaries and salat masters and capoeira masters and all kind of people. And that did a lot by being exposed to that. So I traveled. I didn't just stay in Delaware. I would go wherever I thought I could learn because I would see him on magazines. I would see movements, and I couldn't correlate in my mind how he was putting them together. You just see this fixed movement. So my thing was, well, the only way I'm going to see it is if I go see him. So I happened to be at a capoeira workshop in Washington, D.C., and someone said he was going to be in Dallas, Texas. So I traveled and went to workshops and got exposed to things. And at the capoeira workshop, I was exposed to Mestre Cobra Mansa, which is in Capoeira Angola, which they say is the root capoeira in Brazil. The regional, or it would be regional, is the sport, the more of the excessive flipping and faster movements and things. But the root capoeira, which is Capoeira Angola, he taught. And so I was exposed to him and got to talk to him and exchange things. Well, not exchange, just be exposed to what capoeira was and the roots of it. And I was in that briefly. I found that, unfortunately, a lot of things have a lot of politics. I'm not just shining that on capoeira, and I didn't want to be in the politics of anything. I just wanted to learn, wanted to grow, and share with my students the best that I could share with my students. So, but before, in the course of that, I was blessed to develop a system that I named in Chinese linguistics Sanbei Fa Naki, which is a three generations, my three teachers in the method. And Naki is black because I wanted it to be a distinction because it wasn't coming from Chinese teachers.
Right.
And they'll belittle it. And I would go and, just as being truthful, I faced a lot of racism, subtly.
I remember when we were at that one tournament and the lady, you told her you were our Sifu, and she like said, you're a Sifu, but she said, I think she said you were young, but I think she was trying to say something else.
He said, you know Sifu? How you Sifu? You know Sifu?
I remember this.
She talked about it. See that you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
She said, so that was part of the prompting of why I started Sanbei Fa Naki. Because I said, now you're going to say I'm not Sifu, and I'm over here and I'm perpetuating things that I've been taught through some of the things in your culture, but you're not accepting me.
Right.
Then it's not going to stop me from doing what I'm going to do, but I'm going to be my own. So I took the long fist, I took the Siamese, I took the praying mantis. I learned praying mantis and some tiger techniques from Sebok, Doug Davis. He was primarily praying mantis. And I took the long fist and I took the Siamese and I merged it all together into the Sanbei Fa Naki. And so we had three basic forms: a beginner, an intermediate, and advanced, and long fist. And that was the primary things that everybody trained except for the praying mantis form that I taught you. because you had more of a focus on praying mantis at that time. But I did the techniques, but I didn't teach everybody praying mantis because everybody didn't have an affinity for that. So, you know, you had some like Sifu Cope, who was more tiger in it because his stature and things, and then other people learned the other blending of everything. So
I'd say Jimmy would probably be the more complete of your synthesis or whatever
he's the lineage holder of that system.
right.
Yes, sir. So he knows and he has it. You know,
So
but it's still 3 forms.
Right. He put a video up a couple of days ago where he was doing the 3 forms combined. I could tell. I was like, that's one. You've already gone into the second one, and I think he got partly in the third one. He kind of like, oh, I forgot, or got lost. You know, you get lost in it, and
Yes,
so
sir.
so it was, but it was good. It was refreshing to see it because I hadn't seen it in years, decades, and so it was pretty refreshing to see it. Going back to some Master Hawk, did he teach you Tai Chi? Who taught you Tai
Um, uh, Actually, a gentleman named Jabril, an elder named Jabril, but what's some interesting story is he lived in Baltimore, and there was a teacher named Master Awali Muhammad from Texas, and he came to Baltimore to a tournament, and that was his teacher. But unbeknownst to me, that was his father-in-law that taught me. And
Chi?
so
That the
I
guy,
met,
the Wali is he? He's the one
no,
that lives in DC.
no, sir, he's in Texas, Houston,
Okay,
Texas.
all right.
And so this was in the late 90s that I was learning. I learned the 24, the Yang 24, the short form. But he was taught by Master Awali Muhammad, which was his son-in-law, and was a master in Bagua, Tai Chi, and Xingyi. And I got my first exposure to him in the late 90s, and then kind of came back around to him about 5 years ago, and we developed a relationship for about 10 years, cultivating, where he took me in depth of the principles of Tai Chi, you know, the Song of the 13 Postures. And so that's where I got my background with Tai Chi. And in addition to just doing my own experimentation of things, and not experimentation in the sense of just making up things, the way that it was taught to me, there's guiding principles to things. And when these principles are there, then you know what's going on. You know, so the Song of the 13 Postures, the way I was taught, has the guiding principles of Tai Chi in it. You know, you have other things where it talks about the head being lined on a string of pearls and being aligned and things like that, which are kind of peripheral pieces of the Song of the 13 Postures, the physical parts. But the Song of the 13 Postures, as I learned it, you can see, and there's guiding principles. If you use, in boxing, somebody punches you, you duck back. If you use Tai Chi principles and you're saying you're keeping yourself erect, you have to evade side to side, you know, because you're still keeping yourself erect. If you lean forward and your head goes over your knee, then you're not in alignment you're supposed to be in. What I found in the Tai Chi, people, they'll do brush knee and their shoulders constricted. Well, if it's supposed to be natural principles, why should you feel constriction? So there's got to be, no matter what form you do, Wu, Sun, what have you, there shouldn't be these constrictions, because it's universal principles of yin and yang. And when those things start to have conflict, then you're not blending the yin and yang, and you're not expressing the yin and yang, you know, at its whatever level optimal that you know how to express. So that helped in learning that, and just in life itself, you know, looking at the yin and yang principles in life. And one of the things that keyed me was I was looking at a electrical line one day, and it says in the Song of the 13 Postures. Stillness embodies motion, motion stillness. Seek stillness in motion. Well, you see the electrical wire, but you don't see the electric in the wire.
Mm-hmm.
So this started, so being calm and coming from a centered place, using these universal principles and things like that, has helped me perceive things in a more harmonious way, and which I'm thankful for, because in the martial world, there's all kind of different types of promptings and different things. From my study of the principles, everybody has different tones in their voice. But if you have a person who all the time is talking aggressive like this all the time, then they're too much yang. Mm-hmm. So then if it came to a martial thing, you just prompt their yang because they're already yang, you see? Or you use your yin and you blend. And then they're frustrated because you're blending and you're moving and they can't touch you physically or mentally. This comes into part of what I teach now. I worked in the prison and in the federal halfway house one morning. I was stuff up. So I come in and cook in the kitchen on the weekend, and I walk in the door, and this guy's sitting there, and he gives the guys a signal that I'm coming in the door. So they're already waiting for me to start some stuff. So I walk in the door. This guy says to me, the other guy says, oh, he doesn't know what you said. But then I gave him the definition of what he said and asked the other guy, was he correct? So he starts back in again quickly. And I stop him and I say, hold on. What you want you and I to engage in, what you want you and I to engage in, is that they're going to get me closer to my creator or closer to my ego. Mm. Then he starts back up again. So I go, you win, diffuse them. So to me, if I'm not getting to that place where it's non-combative, then how am I cultivating? How am I growing? No matter what kind of physical shape I'm in, if I look like Ron Coleman or Cjo when he was young, or like when I was younger, how am I really growing? Because everything starts with a thought. So if I can't affect your thought, not in a manipulative way so much, then how have I grown? Then my 47 years, it's just I'm gonna still solve everything physically and I haven't grown. And so for me, it doesn't serve a purpose. I can't speak for other people, but I want to grow. I want to get to the Yoda level. I don't know if I will.
You got to change the way you say stuff.
You know what I mean? I want to be like Yoda, just be like, put my hand up and you just freeze, And then maybe people where I only have to put my hand up, I don't even have to look at you. I just stand there and just emanate a force and you just freeze. And I can just walk through. How to be in the Jedi mind. That's one of my goals. So honestly.
You spoke of Cjo. I don't think anybody that's not in the know would know who Cjo Muhammad is. Would you like to introduce him as one of your teachers as well?
Yes, sir. So these were what I consider influencers, and I'm not taking from them because I really wasn't around these people. And I'll give you a good example. We're talking about Cjo. Well, and I want to give the history kind of Cjo, in the sense of in latter time. Well, we'll go forward and come back. He got his designation from masters all over the world. There were 12 masters from all over the world that came to California, and they sent people throughout a fixed time to study him and bring the documentation back so that they could assess him. So he sat in front of a board and got his designation as a Cjo. And Cjo in Chinese culture is the founder of his own system. And then they changed it from Cjo to Joe C, because there were so many other Cjos that were popping up everywhere, and it wasn't giving him the distinction that he earned. So he told me, he was just, he said, I was scared, he said. He said, they brought me in a room with all these teachers, and he said, Steve Muhammad, and his name is Sabir now. but Steve Muhammad or Steve Sanders is what they know him by from back in the day in the 60s. Said, you know Hungar? He says, he said, you know Hungar. And he says, yeah, because he studied some Hungar and Wing Chun from great Grandmaster Art Wong.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yes, sir.
That's
so, right. So see, at the time that he came up, he was in California, and you had the cream of the crop people there then.
Mm-hmm.
And on that, on that coast, the West Coast. And they said, Steve Muhammad, you do boxing? I said, yeah. He said, Tai Chi, I said, Tai Chi. He learned Tai Chi footwork. He learned Tai Chi, but he uses the footwork in his system. He used Wing Chun blocking, sticking, and trapping. But when he told me that when they taught him the Wing Chun, it wasn't a fixed position like now. They were moving. It was a lot more mobile.
Did you watch that video I sent you?
Yes, sir.
He talks about that. He went to Sifu Sergio, I think his name is, Wing Chun guy, where he was like, well, I got something, there's a disconnect, is kind of how he was saying it. So he went to China where this stuff was supposedly founded and was like, wait a minute, they're not doing these lean back positions and they're not doing all this different things like we see here in the States, and what's being pushed today, was totally different. So he had to, it was a kind of like what's going on here. And so I think when he was talking about that, that's where he was talking about, he was starting to realize like, yeah, you're right. If I'm in a fight and it's so visceral and it's so, I'm off balance, or I might be in this type of balance, I got to be able to hit with the same type of power from any kind of disconnected type position from the ground. So if you're in this lean back position and this is where you're developing all your power from, what happens when you're overwhelmed and now you're back way off that balance? Can you still develop the same power? And I think that's where it hit the kind of like the epiphany from listening to him talk in that one video, where he was like, wait a minute, I've got to reach into this and figure this out. So just kind of going off on.
This is the beauty of having these discussions, because you get to hear truth support truth, and you hear it from different people, then you can put it together. And Cjo's 83. He just turned 83 July the 2nd. So, and he's still teaching. So you've got that he told me back then. And so this truth support and truth is important, in finding things. And it's not, I don't ever want to belittle anybody's martial arts or things like that. I tell my students all the time, you're not going to know every martial art in the world. But whatever you come up with in life, then you're going to have to be able to navigate it to come out on top, physically, mentally, or spiritually. This is what the system that I'm blessed with now is based on: life. How to use these tools to navigate life every day. We're not going to be fighting every day. You don't want to fight. Imagine this. I always use this analogy. You and I are samurais back in the day with them sharp swords, and we just came through like 2 months of battling. We finally get back to the village. We get to chill, and somebody comes and say, Sensei, the barbarians are coming. You don't want to say, man, look, it is chill with that stuff. We've been fighting for the last 2 months.
I need a break.
Look, when you look at what is his name? I don't want to mispronounce his name. The famous Japanese swordsman that used 2 swords.
Musashi.
Musashi.
Miyamoto Musashi.
Musashi cheated after a while. Musashi got tired of killing. He started studying Buddhism and stuff. He got tired.
Well, he started carrying it. He started carrying around a wooden sword because it was kind of pointless for him, because he could outgain. He basically he was fighting the fight here. It wasn't always the physical fight, and so with him already fighting the fight in their heads, he was already winning. What was a statement I heard just recently that was like really good? It's basically, if you're telling yourself you can't, then you've already defeated yourself. You can't say that. You have to, because if you're saying that, then you're already defeated yourself. You've already defeated. You're done. So that's one of the things.
That's why to me it's important that you be careful what you impart to them. I don't say opponents, I say distractors. That's different. It doesn't hold the same weight. It's relevant, but it's not an opponent, because an opponent can be all type of things you perceive in your mind. Evil, all these other things which can constrict you first in the mind before you get to do anything. But if you can say, well, this is a person's distraction, that could be like a gnat. You know, a gnat just bites you, a mosquito bites you, and you pluck it, and you don't think nothing about it no more till you have the itch or whatever, what have you. So you look at these people like Masashi, and he's like, after a while, what I got to prove?
Mm-hmm.
And it's different now, you know, today with this, as far as what people want to develop, if they want to develop themselves. You know, at 57, there's things I work on, things that I want to work on, that I want to grow in, but I'm good overall. Found this study the other day from I don't want to misquote, got to send it to you, but it was about the mind and aging. It said when you get to be 60, that you start to learn both hemispheres of your brain. And this is something Baba Kalindi used to teach and share with me. In Africa, there's certain things you don't get to learn in certain regions until you get to be a certain age. Where in America, they teach you like you're done by the time you're 60. But in actuality, from this test, they show because you've matured, like how you said, how you're shaving stuff off now, we can make quicker decisions because we have certain experiences that gauge that, where a youthful person doesn't have those things. They just have the youth. So from the experience, and then the dendrites and the neurons of the brain, you have these bridgings that are going on as you get further in your journey. So that's how you get, you know, according to how people are approaching it, this maturity and this eldership. And I teach my students, my children, there's a difference between elder and older. An older person could just be anybody that's a peer group and can speak to you anything and give you nothing of value. An elder is always going to give you something that's of value that's going to help you to grow. So I think it's perpetuated in this country too strong about no value for elders. And so now they get pushed to the side. And then if physical ailments come and they put them in the retirement homes, they die because they don't serve a purpose. They don't stay cultivated. You know, it's like the importance of maintaining balance when you mature in your journey, you know, so that later on, if you do almost fall because you practice your balance, you don't. Your importance of learning how to still bang on a bag, because if you don't have physical contact, the body doesn't call for the calcium to keep the bones strong. It don't mean bang the bag up because you're trying to practice to kill somebody. You need that so the body calls on that. And then it keeps your structure strong, because the body is so sophisticated, it's going to make adjustments if it don't have those bands. It's going to adjust just like dudes taking roids. You take the roids, it takes your natural testosterone away because you're supplementing it with testosterone. So it says, I don't have to make it. I'm getting it from outside.
One of the things
that's the importance of tradition, because you want the root principles to be passed down, the important things not lost. Okay, so most of the guys that learned karate back in the 50s or 60s rather, because the 50s was judo, was the first commercial karate school was in the 1950s, like 1955 with Robert Treyes from Arizona. So you see, they put the chamber, the fist on the waist. But what's the difference of here being here by here? You know, people imitated what they saw, but they didn't mean it was correct. Because when the Japanese were dealing with the Chinese didn't teach them the exact things. They taught them things to make them think it was certain things, and the Japanese just took them and made them work. You know, so that, like you say, so then the tendon strength. There aren't many cultures that I know of in America that people are talking about tendon strength. You know, and so if you don't get it through certain martial arts cultures and realize that that's significant in strength itself, you're just lifting weights, like you say, and you're ripping things and you're doing different things because you're just building certain muscle groups. And then you don't have balanced muscle groups. You know, you got big biceps, but your shoulders are thin. Then you rip your shoulders because you haven't worked on your shoulders, you know. So I think those are important things on the physical side of traditional martial arts, just getting lost. Like people doing, they don't, if they do arm banging, you shouldn't
Hmm.
arm bang really without having did that jab. But that's not passed down that much anymore now, or you haven't access to it unless you, of course, they have somewhere probably in the Japanese culture, but it seems like it's so much more hidden to
They
me.
don't they don't they don't use a lot of the jows and the lineaments, but their concept is like, so if they're hitting a McElroy, you're going to start out, and then you gradually get more and more uh, power behind it to develop that striking power or whatever it is you're hitting. One of
Yeah,
the
but you also get classification too.
Right, that's the whole point. So like I can take so like when I use my whip, I don't use it as much as I used to, but I just started out like this, and that's all I did. That's as hard as I was doing it. But over time, because what's happening is that skin pressure is, you're basically overstimulating the receptors in the skin, the pain, pressure, heat, and all that. You're overstimulating them, so that way that you can get harder and then harder and harder, and in that way that you're getting that vibration to the bone, and that goes on to what we're talking about, that calphization, which you're already talking about, is Wolff's law. Any coupling, flexing, or vibration within the bone will remodel and become denser. Why they push in the fitness world for older people to do weightlifting and weight training because of that Wolff's law principle.
Yes, sir. Mhm.
I was going to ask you. So you were talking
No,
about
I'm sounds
tradition,
good.
because that's one of the questions I like to ask the people I'm interviewing is, what is it? What does that mean to you? And if I were to say a traditional martial arts or tradition in that concept, what does that mean to you?
Well, the definition is customs and beliefs and things, kind of unchanged down time. And that's what tradition is to me. It can be specific to something in a certain group of a skill or something, but there are certain group principles, that you're going to need for certain things according to what you're pursuing. If you're a mechanic, you got to know what's going on with the car. Now it's electric, it's something different. Before you had carburetors, all these different things. So you pass that down. But here we go with the change. Now you're not going to have that, and you're going to have electrical cars. So change is inevitable. So you, that's the most inevitable thing there is change. So when people say tradition and just unchanged, I think there's certain things, components, and different groupings of things, whether it's being an engineer, it's being a martial artist, being, a herbalist that and there's variables, but there's root principles that that is H2O is H2O,
Mhm.
you know, and those root things. So that's the way I look at tradition. Like you spoke to me before about, you were interviewing traditional people, and my initial thing was, I'm not traditional, because I thought in my mind about being brought down through some karate lineage. Just as I told you, I was blessed to start Sambe Fa Naki because of those things, those components.
Mhm.
Because I wasn't going to perpetuate other people's things, and you really don't have no love for me. Because I've seen it. Cijo went through it. He said when he went to Hawaii, he got introduced to people's teachers, but they made him like they were. So he never knew that they were his teachers. So he never asked them questions. The time that Cijo came up was a very, very racial time. Part of the time that I came up, there were a lot of racial things. I remember fighting in Salisbury at with the big glasses.
Oh God, yes. I can't think of his
Lockwood.
name. Lockwood, yeah.
Sensei Lockwood. Okay, so I'm fighting there, and now you got three judges that's Ishiru, and I'm fighting the Ishiru guy, and one of the judges is the Ishiru guy's teacher.
I'm with you.
So when I said something, then all of them wanted to gang up on me. So thankfully, none of that discouraged me and stopped me, because it was bigger than me than just being, I wanted to prove some physical skill. If you notice through the years, I pushed you guys to compete more than I competed.
Mhm.
Like when I won the battle of the belt, I fought that day because you guys asked me to fight. I didn't even come to fight. You guys are like, well, we want you to fight. I'm like, okay, I'll fight today. It was more about developing you guys than it was myself in those type of settings and things. So that's bringing it back to the tradition. I think there's key things that need to be passed down. That's like you have your designation. The way I conduct myself, I'm always going to acknowledge that because you earned that. You put the work in for that. Even though we have a mutual respect and an informal relationship, you earn that. To me, it's respectful to be to you to be like Grady, Scott. I can say that because I'm your senior, but you earn that. How does a boy learn how to be a man unless his father acknowledges that he is conducting himself as a young man? How does the teacher continue to teach the lessons if he's not going to be perfect? But if I don't show you respect, how can I look for respect from you? If I don't show you a way, maybe when you're conducting yourself not at your highest and give you an alternative, how am I ever your senior? How am I got to always be an example to some extent. You don't learn that unless I give that to you, in our interaction. You might learn it other places, but I'm always going to acknowledge you. You've put in work. You continue to put in work. What you're doing now, prayerfully, it'll be vital. It'll help somebody somewhere. I don't know. I believe we all should believe that we're important. And you've reminded me of my importance. I think people are afraid to say anything because what their perception of what humility is and, modesty. But if you don't believe it, I use this analogy, two people, Allen Iverson. And I'm not a big basketball person. Okay. Allen Iverson, before he came to the league, he loved Michael Jordan. But when he got in front of Michael Jordan, he shook Michael Jordan down. He made Michael Jordan what they call break his ankles. But he had to have that confidence in himself to excel like he did. So you have to have that level of confidence. But then there's that thin line of being boisterous or what have you. I was always taught in the martial arts. As another person, Sensei Marty Manuel from Jersey. Yeah. He was in the wheelchair. Mm-hmm. He always told me that his teacher told him, show people by your techniques, don't talk. Mm. Let your techniques speak for themselves. Some of the things that they said to me through the years were greater than any trophy I could get. That day that I'm talking about that I was fighting at Mr. Lockwood's, Sensei Marty was judging and I didn't know. And so I lost because they said excessive contact. Oh, yeah. So without naming names, I was fighting somebody's top student that he was taking around battling, everybody. So I punched at him. When I punched at him, my energy made me spin around and I seen his hand come up like this and I thought he was going to try to shoot on me. And I hit him with an elbow in his upper abs and spun around. And when I spun around, his teacher was looking, he was down. Well, he wanted to fight me because the student was hurt. I remember that. I was there. Right, you were there. and so, right. So now you look at what I had to deal with. But coming out of that, I went and talked to Sensei Manuel. He said, man, some of them techniques you were throwing. Now, this is a man who is totally mental because he can't move physically anymore. He said, I didn't even know where you were throwing them kicks from. He said, I was looking, I'm saying, whoa. He said, I hadn't seen anybody fight like that since Tayari Cassell. So that was those compliments and things like that. Just like Cijo, I say humbly, and I wish there was a recording. You know how Seabach taught us to study pictures and things. Mm-hmm. Seabach was very analytical. And, he taught us how to break things down and look at things and notice little subtleties. And I was talking to Cijo one day, and I asked him a specific question about something I saw. He said, how'd you see that? And he paused. He said, I know how you saw that. He said, you're the first person outside of my system, and anybody can call him for him to verify it, that ever explained something in my system without specifically training with me. Well, that's like the Quincy Jones of martial arts. You know? That's a blessing. He said, you only can do that if you're a master. You know, this is my elder. So those things help propel me and keep me going. And I share them humbly. But back to the humble piece, I've come to find myself and teach my students, humility is studious silence and controlled confidence. When you're learning something, if you're truly learning, you're studious, you're watching, you're listening, all the senses is engaged. And then once you learn a certain degree of it, people can speak of it. You don't have to sit up and contradict them all the time, because you might learn something beyond what you know if you just chill. So I've learned it to be studious silence and controlled confidence. A person's humble don't have nothing to prove, or people get a misconception that they're weak or what have you. They're not. They just know. They don't have to live it on the outside. They don't have to put it on their sleeve. They don't have to scare people. When they decide to really scare somebody, somebody's peeing on themselves. So something's going on because it really comes out of them, you know. So I think that line of trying to be humble and not having a clear definition in yourself about it, or being modest, sometimes suppresses people. You don't want to be arrogant, but you want to be confident. Because how can you navigate life if you aren't confident? If you don't feel you're of value, then what do you have? I feel like martial arts is supposed to help you bring value to yourself. I think that's where you can't get in MMA. You can't get in some of these sport things. You can't learn the value of yourself only in this physical context. And that's only going to take you so far, because you're going to keep on looking for the next external stimulation to overcome the next one, the next, like Fearless, the movie The Fearless. What did little buddy tell him? What are you going to be? You got to beat everybody in the world? You know, that's such a like impactful movie when you watch it and you pay attention to it. You know, if you really want to progress, it's all about you. It's all about yourself, you know, in your development. That's what I find. So I would like camaraderie with other people to learn things and share their experiences. That's why I thank you for this. I hope this opens doors up that I can speak to other teachers and build, you know, camaraderie with them, go visit them and share some things, because I don't have that a lot. Because I'm not looking to go to schools to challenge people. I'm not looking for the physical things like that. I want to grow. I want to share with people the things I love. Another person with Guru, Cliff Stewart, one of the most balanced persons aside from Cijo that I've ever met in my life. Cijo not only taught me, shared brief things with me, I learned how to be a better man. I seen him with his grandson, and this was probably 6 or 7 years ago. I was on the phone with him, and his grandson fell. He said, "Come here, grandson. Sit on grandpa's leg and get some strength." See, we don't do that to young men now. Pop him in the chest and tell him, "Get up, you're a man." He's not a man, he's 4. And when he becomes a young man, then you need to acknowledge that he's a young man. Just like I have to acknowledge you with the things that you progress. How else you would know in some areas, but that brings the fullness to it. Not that you need my validation, but it brings the fullness to it. The things you do on the street, you probably pull in on a lot of resources with things, the thought processes you've been taught, me, Seabach, all kind of people. But if you didn't have confidence, you couldn't go do what you do on the street or in the office. So that you don't get that from just MMA. I'm not knocking it. You know, I love the sports and different things, but as a whole person, you don't get that from that. But that's what you need for life. That's what you need when your wife is looking at you like, "Wow, I don't have a new couch." And you feel that pressure all the time. You can't karate chop her in the neck. You can't shoot over her. You got to be like, "Yeah, we got to work on that." And you got to find a way to make it work. You know what I mean? If that's what you need to do. And that's real life. So that's why my system is It's called evolving self-preservation, because self-preservation is holistic. It's not self-defense. It's not offense. It's holistic.
I don't even like that term, self-defense, self-protection. You know, it's, I don't know. Either it's
puts you on alert all the time. It puts you on, like, always, is this person going to do that? Is this person going to do this? You know, where you can chill. And if you've learned certain experiences, like I work in behavioral health, I know if I go in a restaurant and I see somebody sitting there and their legs tapping all the time, I either get another seat because they got something going on over here, because I'm familiar with those habits. Like, you see certain habits from what you do. And it don't become martial. It just becomes adjustments. You're like, okay, come on, honey, we need to leave a little early. That's self-preservation. You didn't get in a fight. You didn't argue with your wife, but it's self-preservation.
It's not always about that physical. That's why the term is just, even if we go back to, feudal times, they were, like we were talking about threat assessments, they're walking down the road earlier and, something about this doesn't look right down this way. Let's go around this way to avoid something that he just picked up on naturally because he's been exposed to it, something, whatever it may be. He saw that there was a tree limb not laying the way it should be laying, and it just kind of, let me walk this way. So saying just calling it self-defense, there's more to it. There's just more to it.
So I do want to mention a couple other people. Like, I learned a few weapons, and there were the ones that are favorite. I learned 3 sexual staff from Mwalimu Mwanzo, and gun disarmament from him.
What? Gun disarmament?
Yeah, his method of gun disarmament. I learned his method, and then I learned mercenaries method. There were 2 different things. His method was more family oriented, and the one that was the mercenary, if you got shot and you were around, then you didn't do what you needed to do. So you should have took my cue. Right. Bobby Shangi was an elder over everybody, who was elder even over Baba Kalindi. And I learned some things about yoga from him. And just about humility, about at that particular time in the African cultural things I was in, drumming, the significance of drumming, why rhythm is important.
How is your music? Because that's something we haven't talked about, because music is a very big part of you. How has that influenced you in your martial arts? Because I know that from training with you, I have no rhythm.
I'll tell you, the music is great because I'm teaching guitar lessons, and I have some students that I've been teaching for 10 weeks. And I had like a little recital with them the other day, 10 weeks. And they created their own song and played and sang at the same time. So when I see evidence of that, I'm humbled, because it takes me back to a student I had in Phoenix. And I just have to speak the truth. Everybody has their stories. He can verify this. He was studying the Tong Sudo class, and he invited me to come to class. So I came. He was studying there, and then he was studying with me, trying to make his decision. So he happened to still be over there. So this is no belittlement to the class or anything like that. This is just what transpired. So it just happened this night. He was sparring. It was a master's class. And he was in there sparring with the masters. And he's holding his own after training 1 year. So that's not taking anything from masters or anything. What the point I'm getting to is how you're taught and what you're taught. I think you can vouch for that. You can bear witness to that because of the way that I taught you certain things. Sebak say, go with him and learn the kicking. You like how he kicks, go talk to him, watch him, study him. So, that's rewarding to me. 10 weeks, they wrote their own songs. I talked to the children and I said, who wrote the song? The son says, I wrote the song. And it wasn't like Mary Had a Little Lamb. He created a concept. He found words to support the concept. He put it all together. That's what's fulfilling to me. That's why I talk about what can carry over into life. Because now the daughter said, well, there's days that I'm depressed, but I get my guitar and I feel better. This behavioral health thing is big in this country. And there's more and more things that's happening because there's more and more stress and people aren't learning coping skills. Just become every day. The stimulus, they got too much stimulus. We was growing up, you had 3 TV channels and they went off at 12 o'clock. Dun, 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 dun. Now it's on 24 hours a day. And so there's no downtime for people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all balance, to sit in silence and be satisfied with silence, to hear the crickets, these things, so you can chill, So into the music influenced me later rhythmically getting into the African martial arts, because as Baba Kalindi taught, a lot of things came from dances, and there were certain experiences that certain warriors had in certain areas. There's Dembe, where they wrap their hand and they box with this, like almost like Muay Thai, and the clubbing with one hand. There's Senegalese wrestling, which I don't want to say that is what they call Giribu. It may be the exact name, but I know there's Senegalese wrestling. So the things that he taught me, the dances he taught me, I knew exactly what he did. He do the dance, snatch your arm, put you in the arm bar, snap the arm bar. But he had hands that were tremendous. My hands aren't like that. So my hands are thick, but they're not big like his. So I adapted his dances with the centrifugal for certain things. Part of my approach is, if you physically put it out there, it don't need to stay the same. I need to go get it. I need to bring it to me. I need to shut it down so you can't use it. Then I ain't got to worry about it anymore. You can't get your gun. You can't get your knife. And if I throw you down too soon, and it's like a lot of people do throws, I'm not knocking, but if you throw them down and real street situations, you're an officer, they could still have their gun. And now you aggravated them, right? Or you're close to them and they pull their knife and cut you on your ankle or something like that and start slicing up and going inside. That's what I'm talking about. The environments that we live here in America, the adaptation you probably need to survive. So it's not a knock that I'm more knowledgeable than other people. It's just from working in prison and dealing with real criminals and different things and different situations and teaching police officers. And, just the thing I've had to deal with, you got to be realistic about this thing, man, if you want to come home. In your thinking, or if you physically got to do something, you got to be realistic about it as possible. Can't be just I'm flashy because I got this weapon in my hand or what have you. What about if you go out to the store and it's dark and it's low light? You don't know where they're pulling it from. You don't know where they're pulling the knife from. Or, you don't know these different things. So prayerfully, something says, hey, it ain't time to go in the store, or don't go to the store tonight. And you listen.
Gotta listen to that little voice.
Right. You find out in the news, somebody got cut at the store you were going to. So that little voice is taking you back inside. That little voice should grow. And you should know the difference between it being your subconscious voice and that greater part of you inside. And so when you that greater part of you inside, that's a greater guidance. That's because that part of you is not going to guide you wrong. You can experiment with it. You can experiment with it. So I had an West African dance teacher named Eno Washington, who influenced me in dance and yoga. So that helped me bring some things together with that. I don't want to miss these were just influencers because I wasn't around them all the time. Just brief encounters. There was a teacher named James. He was James Brady at home in Delaware, and he helped me to grow. James Brady, right?
And
he was a You gotta remember you're younger than me, Sifu. So a lot of these things I experienced, you weren't around in. I started, see, that's where we had the line. I started in the martial arts when you was a little teeny tiny kid.
Oh, a little.
You was a little teeny tiny kid. So by the time you got into martial arts, so I'm 14, how old are you?
I'm 50. Just you were already 40.
7 years. I got 7 years. So I started at 10, you know. So by the time I was 16 and you coming along later on, it was a different thing. Like I saw, I just
Was it
texted.
16? Were you 16? I thought you were older than that when I started training with CBOC.
Now I was older. Yeah, I was older when you started training with CBOC.
I thought you were like close to 19.
By the time I was 16, 17, I mean, there you were coming along later on, so I had already had all that time in and still in a lone type situation. I didn't get to train with a lot of people. My major teachers was Sifu Hawk, Sibak, and Grandmaster Allen. But the other ones are just why I say influencers and facilitators. Like I learned things from Guru's Cliff about, again, excellent father, fantastic marksman, fantastic martial artist, kind person, kept you laughing. If you were around him, you were laughing all the time because he just was that way, but he knew his stuff. Black levels in Thai boxing, Kimpo, high levels in Salat, but you would never know it because he was just a humble person. He wasn't boisterous or anything, but he knew his things. And so I learned things from him just as a person, martially, and I miss him. Him and Baba Kalindi together is 600 or 700 years almost of martial knowledge of how much they knew. They were like encyclopedias. They're like Guru Danan Sato. When he transitions, that's an encyclopedia that's going to be gone.
Yep.
That's the whole Encyclopedia Britannica. That's going to, you know what I mean? There's not a lot of people like that. There's a lot of people who cross-trained, who don't see the correlations, who don't look for the common thread. They're still looking for one better than the other. I mean, there's something in all of it. If you have a teacher, everything don't fit everybody. It's the mentality of the teacher, but you can't get that out of MMA, not unless you've got a teacher that's teaching MMA and stressing life. And I don't think there's a whole lot of them. And I don't know because I don't like to speculate.
Right.
But that's the difference to me. I don't knock MMA, but if you want to develop as a person, I think you should get a teacher that fits you, a teacher that cares about you, a teacher that prayerfully can develop a love for you, and you can develop a love for them, which affords respect. And then affording respect, you're going to conduct yourself a certain way, and they're going to always conduct themselves a certain way. I think that's
what's missing. If we look at teachers today, there's not a lot of that, because if we go back to what it was, in using Chinese culture as the example, you had the word shifu or sifu, which is actually an old word for father. So when we look at that, and you look at that, how that was, the mindset of that, it was, father, son, or, kept in within the family, because you had family styles. And then they started teaching outside of the family, but a lot of those people were taken in as disciples. And when they were taken in as disciple, you are now like a sibling. There's no difference. I have a son, but you're a son too. That's how it was, and how they, taught. And I think that concept has been lost, because you were still getting that even back when I was learning. When we look at CBOC and people that I would train with there was still that, concept there. And I think today it's marketed. It's all about the, physical part of it, and not so much about the development of the person as it was back in those days.
Well, so what do you take out into your communities then? If you just take a fighting mentality out into your communities, you're just being destructive. You're not looking for, okay, all I got to do is bust him in his mouth and crack his teeth or whatever to solve the situation. I'm not scared of him. Rather than say, okay, I don't know what. Here's another thing I was talking to one of the teachers about not too long ago. They talk about pressure points. Even if you can accurately get a couple pressure points while you're moving and doing things, you don't know the health condition of the person that you're applying this to. So you don't know how their body's going to react. Say you attack a lung point. You don't know how their body's going to react. That, if it starts to constrict the oxygen, there's a general reaction, but they could have a bad heart. You hit somebody on the street without that, no pressure point, and okay, you crack their jaw, you bust their face open, they hit the car, and it kills them because it breaks their neck. There's consequences to these things. So you got to evolve. Yeah, I feel that you need to evolve. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go have to spend time in prison for just anything. That's to me not what it's about. About developing is, like I said, I hope that this grants me the opportunity to open the doors to other people, to speak with other people. That's what I like. Just to even be able to share, this is significant. Like I would like to eventually do something about just the history of the state that I come from, with martial artists and things like that, because, that's where I come from. And who sees it, sees it. I saw a life coach the other day that said, there's all kind of people that read people's books that have passed away, but they're inspired. So you never know what you say, and being mindful of what you say is going to help someone else. We have this perceptions of ourselves. I never felt like I wasn't important, but I never tried to make myself so important that it wasn't more important than the student. I have a 3rd-degree burn on my hand now. And the day that I got that burn, I went and taught class.
I remember. I was
my hand was in the ice bucket.
Hand in the bucket.
And I was using my foot, guiding y'all hands around to teach, because I had to be the class, because that's where I was supposed to be, but that's out of love. I didn't go to the hospital.
I think you had like apple vinegar or something in it.
No, I was just water and ice, and that scar is still there today.
I thought you had like vinegar or something in it.
Well, I just had the water and ice, man, and kept it cold. And then one of the guys, say no names, didn't want to do his on-arm push-ups. And I got down in front of him and did push-ups face to face with him, one arm.
I remember.
So
and me and Jimmy are looking at him like, we'll kill him later.
Right. Right. If you don't build that kind of drive in life, what happens when obstacles come up against you? If it's just sport oriented, you don't have a purpose. Like I went to Georgia and my nephew graduated, and he takes me to this mountain, and he goes, I said, so what are we doing? He said, we're going all the way up the mountain. I'm like, oh, you didn't say nothing about we going all the way up this mountain. And my point is this: at this age, if it's not necessary, what I need to go try to prove myself to go up to the top of this mountain? What if something happens on the way up there? They got to get somebody up to get me out of there, or I'm gone. So we think different when you get in. He's like walking up there and he's doing push-ups along the way. 2 days later, he couldn't get out of bed for 2 days because he didn't drink any water all the way up there. See, that's the difference in eldership and youth. And he was like, oh, come on. I was like, okay. I took my time. I went up little by little, because even if you got good cardio, different situations demand different things. You take a swimmer, he might not beat you on a bike because that's not his thing, right?
It's a different type of cardio. It's a different type of the way the body exchanges oxygen to produce energy. It's different. It's different.
Right.
If you get a grappler and a boxer, you have a grappler, he goes, well, I'm going to teach you some boxing. I want you to go 12 rounds. He's not going to last 12 rounds.
Nah, that's right.
But you take the boxer and go, you got to fight for 3 minutes, but it's on the ground and it's all grapple. He's going to be gassed because it's not the same. It just isn't.
And people don't get that. And I think it's important to try to get those things and stop trying to worry about being better than the other person. It's where you are in life. I'm thankful to be here. I know I'm leaving here one day. I'm trying to make it the best every day that I can make it. I'm honored in a situation like this because we have the technology to do these things now. I remember looking at the Jetsons when we were younger and they were talking to somebody on the screen. It just trips me out now that we can do this.
We are.
Here we are, we're doing this and you're using it for a positive thing. I commend you for this, for whatever reasons, which are positive to me, that you're doing this. I think you can open up a lot of things. I'm prayerfully never going to get on a platform and being condemning anybody in their arts, because that's not the thing. I have my approach. I have my areas that I excel in. I have my areas that I went to ask a teacher about stick fighting. It's one stick fighting style that I'm really fascinated about. And he said, oh yeah, I trained with this person, which I seen him with pictures with him. I held the stick for 45 minutes. Just holding the stick was work. If you're not used to it, you ain't even clashing sticks. And it was just, he just had me going through movements. But then I come from an empty hand world. We did the weapons, for the tournaments and things like that. And then you learn different types of things martially. But for me, I'm not always going to have a stick. I'd like to learn it. And, and it's beautiful when people do it, but that's just me. Because like I said, again, I'm working towards the Yoda thing. So I want to get to where, even if they get to go make the move. And I don't know the keys to that. I share something in class as a lesson, key, breakthrough. And I keep documentation on things that I'm working on. And I was saying to a guy the other day, he's talking about training because he was just talking about physicality. I said, I train every day. Oh, that internal. Yeah, internal is mine. That's what internal is. And how are you conducting things in your mind? What are you working on? Like I was talking about the silk reeling. So if you go slow enough, when your hand crosses over your legs, you should feel the meridians connect. But you're not going to get that going fast. So now if you build that type of sensitivity, what if you build a type of sensitivity when you stay and you meditate and you notice that an ant is moving down there by you, as subtle and little as he is. But that level of subtlety in yourself can be positive or negative because now you have all the external stimulus that's greater than just ant moving. How do you still stay centered in that? To me, if I don't ask myself those questions, how do I grow? That's just me. I don't try to pose those questions to other people or try to be philosophical, because that to me is a great level of sensitivity. Everything starts with a thought. So you've got a sniper that's going to snipe somebody. Even if he's quick at it, he has to get fixation on you, right? So his fixation is a mental pulse projected towards you. If you can pick up that pulse, can he harm you? You don't have to know where it's coming from. You just got to know a sense of danger, that something is threatening and something's predatory. What about those stages of things?
Well, that's just like what I was saying. You're walking down that path in, medieval times or feudal times. You're like, something's not right. I'm going to go this way to avoid
they
whatever.
Had higher sensitivity back then because they had to live that. But in some senses, they might have had more peace too because they didn't have the other stimulus.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now we have the stimulus, and if people choose to balance it out, it's whatever person, it's a choice. We all are involved in it in some process, but it's a choice. How much stimulus can you take, and what do you want to be stimulated by? Because every thought has a chemical reaction in the body. Right. It's going to create one chemical or another, positive for you or negative. So those are the things that I keep myself involved in at this stage and enhance and still, maintenance physically of myself, and prayerfully can get a few students under me. My mother used to always tell me when I was younger, she used to always say, real masters, I just had to say what she said, She said, real masters don't have a lot of students, sweetie. My mom. So, but this is what I've recognized. Real masters don't have a lot of students that dedicate themselves like the master has dedicated themselves. They might have other students and they may just get a portion. They may not stay the course. So if you just think that you're not going to have any students and you are a teacher, because some people are teachers and other people aren't. I'm a teacher. So in knowing that I'm a teacher, I know it's important, and I've seen how people's lives have been enhanced by me and being blessed to be in that space and interacting with it, and my life being enhanced. So I got to know that there's a place for that somewhere. I may not be here where I'm at, and may be traveling, because everybody don't have everything. You look at different systems of karate, you look at different systems of kung fu. It's according to what people are searching for. Whether it's a physical, it may be just you coming in and sharing some specific. Like I look at your teacher over in Japan, and they have him on this Kodo Obi channel, and he, looking at him with different things. He's fantastic, but what are you looking for?
Right.
And so I'm
like what you're saying, so when I look at what things he taught me, and what I was saying earlier, it was, you can know 10 forms, but if these 10 forms all have the same technique in it, learn one. Why not?
I knew one person who said in their class they had 19 forms.
Yeah, it's like, what in the world? Why?
Check this out, Sifu. 19 forms, 7 days in a week. You would have to do 2 forms a day to partially stay up. So how do you keep that going? Which we know there's some parts of that is economics and different other things like that, because it lengthens the people's stays in different settings. So, like you said, that's why I was beginner, intermediate, advanced. Basic principles, and people are going to create off of the principles.
Right. And that's one of my questions. Like when you look at your forms, do you look at them? I know you don't because you taught me, but I asked the question anyway. Do you look at them, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or you look at them more like, because A equals B equals C, or is it A plus C equals 5, or, the combination of them? It's not the linear progression of the form, but the
if I teach, when I was teaching forms, I didn't teach linear, as you know. Right. I taught off the clock, which made you go in different directions with your postures, because I felt like that was more of a certain level of realism, moving around and going in different directions and transitioning your movements, to different directions. And then, so that was my thing. Like, we used to do our circle drill.
Right.
In the middle. Well, that's what it was for. You didn't want to be able to sit around and lock up. You had to be able to flow freely. When the signal was given, boom, you had to be ready and go. Read it, feel it, sense it, what have you, and then go. So I've always taught that way. And when they talk about presets, in the Song of the 13 Postures, it says, beginners learn by oral instruction. Okay, so that's in life. If you look, how's a baby learn? You tell your baby, grandma. The baby look and says, grandma. Registers, got the reference. Now you know how to talk. So you're going to go and do repetition. You're going to have point of reference. You're going to do these things. Like I say, again, it's what you're doing it for. Right. If the contention is this is an applicable fighting, then that's your thing. It's like Tyson said, everybody can say what they want until I hit them.
Yeah, they get punched in the face. Everybody's got a plan. They get punched.
Right, everybody's got a plan until I punch them in the face. So you can say what you want. There's different people at different levels. There's people that can cloak their energy, and you never even know it's going to pop off, and it pops off, and it's too late now. That's a higher level. but there's people that can do that. So it's, what are you in it for? When I set skill sets. I don't do forms. I teach skill sets and things. So when you learn your skill set, you learn how to flow, and you have to watch the body mechanics, because two people that really emphasize body mechanics were Cijo and Grandmaster Allen. People go fast, but the body's not going to react as fast as you move.
Mm-mm.
So if I hit you in the stomach, I need to be reading your body language for what you can do a preset, but that don't mean that's going to work on everybody. You go to hook his arm and you go throw him, and he sensed it. He either blended out or locked up. Now what you going to do? How you going to adapt? But if you read body language, you can adapt easily. If you read and know that when you give tension, that they resist, and you learn how to yield and blend out from a yielding, that's a different thing, because you're not going to be stronger than everybody. The same thing like taking and dealing with a supervisor or having a business and somebody's in contention with you. If you apply the principles of Tai Chi, they're rah, 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 rah. If you rah, rah them, the only way you're going to win is greater yang. That's only one. Or you can take the yin path. So now they're rah, 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 and you say, okay, I apologize that I offended you. Is there something we can do that we can resolve this situation? And you notice they start to come down, they de-escalate. You know from your work. So that's applying the principles of Tai Chi to life. But there you can't get around them principles in this existence that I know of. There's yin and then there's yang. And you don't have to call it that, but it's those forces. Mm-hmm. So, if I rod you, if we were both talking while we're doing this interview, nobody's going to get it. What's the communication? There's yielding. You're yielding right now while I'm speaking. When you speak, I yield. It has to be that reciprocity. It has to go back and forth. You see it in natural life. The bone is yang, the muscle is yin. It's you can put it in that linguistic base or take it out. It still exists. And they're there for a reason. If we were all flesh, we wouldn't have nothing to support our structure. If we were all bone, we wouldn't have nothing to protect the organs. Mm-hmm. So if we look at it in those things, I saw this show, and I definitely want to bring this point up. Alone, it's called Alone. I like watching some of these survival shows.
Oh, is that Naked and Alone or whatever? It's
not Naked and Alone. This is just called Alone. So on Alone, they take 10 people out, and the person that survives out there the longest gets $500,000, but they're each one by themselves. So this guy kills this moose. When he kills the moose, he's celebrating. Then he gets to thinking, I killed this moose, but this moose is almost pure protein and no fat. I still could die out here. When the body starts to feed on itself, that's an automatic process in the body. So do we ever ask ourselves this? Why do we give up so easily? The body's already mechanized to survive and do everything it can to keep you going. Martial arts make you so you don't give up as easy. But here's the thing, too, in martial arts. You don't want to push it too far. You're still a balance. There's the yin and yang. You don't want to push it so far that you override it. And then you become like, it's no mockery, Ron Coleman. Ron Coleman wasn't satisfied. Now his back is broke.
Yep.
So it's a balance. The body's already set up that it says, I'm going to try to help you live. I'm going to eat off your fat, everything to keep us alive. Well, look how easily the human being gives up. So the martial arts training can make you so you have willpower, but your willpower still has to be in a certain context to take you a certain space. And in your own personal constitution too. Because now, if you and I go to Alaska, and not to go too far into this, and we eat whale blubber, we ain't gonna process it in our body the same way they do.
Right, because we've never eaten it.
Right, because their body's used to that. So that means in your own specific constitution. So in your constitution, what does seafood do? What is the demands of his mind? What is the demands or projection of his thoughts into his atmosphere and his environment? Me, my same thing. So that's how I approach things now. I would love to meet again other people, share things with them. There's so many different holes of different things I'd like to hear. That's what goes back to what I've learned about humility, studious silence. If I go around and act like I know everything when I meet other people, I'm not gonna learn nothing. I just want to be quiet. Oh yeah, you study prayer in such and such a way. How do you grab? You know, do you grab with your finger like this? Do you use your finger to poke? Do you use your thumb? You know, do you snatch and grab at the same time? You know, like the praying mantis itself. You know, what is your approach? You know, how do you work the tendons? How do you work your short power? You know,
You think we
and
get
how
this
do you
from,
put yourself?
you think we get this from Seebach?
What's that?
That mindset, what you're talking about right now.
Yes, yes, and no. Really, no. I'm gonna tell you why. Check this out. We couldn't be this way unless we weren't this, unless we were this way.
Innately, you mean?
Innately, we're this way, and that's why we correlate with him thinking that way, because he could train us to be that way, but that don't mean we're that way. You see, so like, say a person you admire, and you say they got a degree from Yale and they got a degree from Harvard, but you understand what they're talking about, but you don't have a degree. You wouldn't understand it unless that's you. You see what I mean?
Right.
So Seebach was that way. All he did was prompt that out of us. And that's another level to me. I don't feel that I'm a teacher, I'm a prompter. I was taught everything we need is inside ourselves. And all we do is prompt it. You couldn't have been able to kick like that unless you had the hidden ability inside yourself. You saw it, you started working in mechanics, then you started being successful. It was already in you. You just needed to prompt it. So I believe that we were always that way. We were just came to him at different stages of our journey, and he prompted it in us. And now it expands in us. So we look at things in that from that perspective. You wouldn't even relate to what I'm saying now unless you were that way.
Right.
That's why you could ask that question, because that's the way we think. You know, and there's limitations, and then there's expansions on that. You know, like I said, I want the Yoda thing. Somebody else might not ever want that. So in that, what are the keys to me getting to the levels of getting there? First, it has to be a desire for that. And I have to put my mind in that space to want to be in that space. Then things could come along to help me get to that space. But if I don't ever desire to be there and work on it, I'm not going to get there. You know, so I believe a lot of things are inside. Nobody made Allen Iverson like Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson was Allen Iverson. You know, he just worked on it. That's why when people talk about practice, it was in him. Okay. Steph Curry, the dude just throws the ball up, boom, it goes in. It seems like it. But it's in him. Like martial arts is in you. Military, soldier discipline, structured discipline is in you. You know, analyzation of things is in you. You learn how to communicate it on all levels. That's something we have to all work on, but it's already in you.
That's how I've always, when I look at, when Jimmy and I both went in the Marine Corps together, and I look at her when we went through boot camp, I would always correlate it like, there's nothing you could do to me that I haven't already been done to me, like training wise and through training with you. And then it was later developed, like all they did was help bring something out of me that was already there and cultivate that, the discipline and things like that. So I would have to agree with that wholeheartedly. So
yeah, if it's not already in you, can't nobody cultivate that in you. I mean, there was a grandmaster I was talking to, and we were talking about just skills, you know, and being a warrior and fear and different things like that. You know, you can overcome certain things, but some people they're just a certain way with certain things, you know, just life. Because I don't like to go to dog fights, does that mean I'm not a man? Does that mean I wouldn't protect myself? You know, somebody else go to dog fights and they're like, oh, you know, that's not my thing. I don't want to see animals hurt each other like that. But these judgmental things that people have, I don't need all these extra separations. I need growth. And I don't have everything. There's some things that, I have everything inside me, but there's other things that may prompt it. Like I've enjoyed the interviews you've had with the other teachers, just their commitment and the times that they've put in, just to be able to spend time with them, to talk to them physically and go to their spaces and say, hey, what was this? What was that? Thank you for just sharing your time. Even if they never teach me a technique, I'm going to get something from it. So I'm glad you started this series, and I'm honored to be part of the process. And it helps prompt me, at this stage now, to keep on, to keep going, to keep growing, and know that I have things of value to share. I got to know that, because if I don't, what I got to wake up to? If I don't believe that about myself and seeing certain things transpire in my life and recognize it and build off of that, then what's the use? Then that hopelessness is not a good space for nobody, no matter what human being there is. I work in behavioral health, and you see these people and they get in these hopeless spaces. They say Lao Tzu did this saying, but I don't know who it was. It says, if you find yourself depressed, your thoughts are too far in the past. If you find yourself anxious, your thoughts are too far in the future. If you find yourself at peace, you're in the now. And I add, and that's the most important space there is now. You don't have nothing else beyond now. We got this. The past is gone. Our history training, get off here. It's going to be what it's going to be. But all we really have is right now. So if we don't cultivate in that now and learn how, that's the same thing in Tai Chi. Tai Chi is like the beginning of the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So you got to know when to use yang, when to use yin. See, it's still Tai Chi. Mm-hmm. So if we stay conscious of these principles, it helps us flow more harmonious in life, no matter what materialistic things we have. Because you can have all the money you want, throw parties, whatever your thrill is. When that's gone, you still got to sit with self. And if you can't sit with self at peace, that's terrible. So that to me is what martial arts is about. Developing me, pushing myself past other spaces, cultivating spaces. I always say to students, say you take a water thing and it's all this level, and you put water in 5 slots and all that's who you are. There's going to be one that's here, there's going to be one that's here, there's going to be one that's here, there's going to be one that's here. How you get it so it all stays at its optimal level as much as possible, and flowing back and forth. And that's the inner work. Whatever the process is, if yoga helps you get there, I have definitely found that mudras are very, very useful. The Indian mudras, it's the hand, when you see the finger configuration.
Okay.
Which I believe, and can't clarify to do the historical thing, that the ninjutsu culture got from the Indians in India. But it definitely helps. So my system is holistic in that sense of dealing with healing things, dealing with the physical. People can knock out, but can they revive a person? So if just destruction isn't everything, it's destruction. Look at yin and yang. We wouldn't get here. Look at the yang principle. If the womb don't open up, we don't get here, right?
Right.
So if the womb don't open up, they have to cut, right? Still, that's yielding. So in order for life to start, there has to be a yielding. Look at how important the principle is. If that don't happen, you die. You're still yielding. You're going back. See?
Sure.
So if people may consider some of these things, maybe they help enhance their lives. And I want to be around more people who are considering some of these things, or we can grow together. I very rarely get to really talk these things, and some of these things I don't talk about. But this is how I live. This is what I do, and this is what it's come to for me partially. The physical, yeah. There's things like I took out a lot of the twisting postures, but I put them back in for maintenance of my muscles, not for really so much specific martial use, but for maintenance of my muscles. You see some systems, people just stand, and they, go a front extended stance or what have you, but they're just standing. It's so many different dynamics, but I don't think you can hit that in things that are just much like mixed martial arts. You're not developing the person. And let's look at this. Think about what these people are going to come out on the other end of this in another 5 or 10 years.
Right.
Because they're getting hit with elbows. All this is not just getting hit with gloves.
Look at Ali.
Right.
Look at him later in life.
So we weren't made to be pounded on like that.
Right.
So that's a choice. I don't want that.
Well, that gets to one of my other questions. So today what we have is this this big push, and this is part of why I'm doing this series, or talking to I'm talking to what I consider to be traditional or realistic martial artists that have got deep understanding of their training. And like what I see today, and you have these people, and there's no disrespect to them and their abilities. One of them is somebody I would look at as a kind of a mentor or for leadership, and the other one is Joe Rogan, and you got Jocko Willink. Both of these guys have said that jiu-jitsu has exposed all their martial arts and basically showed them not to work. I mean, I'm paraphrasing and putting it in my own words, but when you have that kind of arrogance of like, have you fought me yet?
Well, okay, but let's look at this, Sifu. Okay, how important is, again, what is your path?
Right.
That helps promote what they're involved in, because it's physicality. Okay, they don't know. I know some home guard masters, they stand in front of, they're gonna crush you. They're gonna crush you, no matter what you come with, because what they've been trained with and the determination and the things they know to do, they're going to crush you. So they can never say, oh, everything's been proved out. It's like somebody saying somebody's the world champion. They have not fought all the best in the world.
Right.
There's little hidden pockets of all kinds of things in this world. So again, it goes to the Fearless movie. That just promotes what they want to pursue. If that's not what you want to pursue, but you still can protect yourself, you still can utilize self-preservation mentally, physically, or spiritually, that's a different road. It doesn't matter as much to me now about somebody saying something, you can't do this, okay? As long as you don't try to do something to hurt me, I don't have to prove it. But if you try to do something to hurt me, then you might find out what it's about. You better pray that you don't, because it changes, it shifts. Okay, you got the money to go in the gym all the time, and you're promoting this thing, and that, it helps you with what you promote. But who are you as a person? Because that matters to me. It don't matter to them, that's their life. So it's like when we were talking about something before, when somebody was speaking to you about, what's this and what's that. You can't do this, you can't do that. Like what I said about the guy. The dude said, Kafahalik ya Habibi. He don't know what I know. That's his assumption. When I gave the definition of what the dude said, the translation, then you don't never know what a person knows unless they share it with you. So what is really the relevance unless you want to be in that realm? I'm not going to play basketball with these boys dunking and putting their buttocks on my head. I ain't got nothing now. You know what I mean? I'm beyond that. I'm beyond that. Dude say, you can't kick in the head no more. Yes, I can. Because I'm going to hit you in your stomach and you're going to fall over and your head's going to be right there. And I can kick it. Now, there's other people. I know a grandmaster I have great admiration for. He's 60-something and he still can jack you in your head. That's him, and I admire him. But that's not me, even in a tip-top condition, because I don't feel like that's necessary. So it's the paths that we want and what we want to pursue, what we want to get out of life, what we want to get out of our training. Mine is for my life. This is part of my life. This isn't who I am, just martial arts. This is part of my life. This is how I navigate my life with these tools, these principles, and it gives me peace and it helps me in hard times. Those same people that talk all their trash. I mean, look at the football players who have these concussions later on. They don't know to hear, and all of a sudden they're trying to kill themselves. And over a sport, that's not to knock them. That's what your athleticism is in. I commend Floyd Mayweather. Some people hate him because he don't get hurt. He was smart. He didn't let himself get beat up. If you're going to be in that, you shouldn't let yourself get beat up because it's going to take a toll. So it's all in what you want. It's going to pay. It's going to pay out what you put in it. If that's what you want, that's what's going to happen to you. Look at Ali. That's what's going to happen. There's a time and there's a window for everything. Mm-hmm. Just like a baby, there's a window for everything. And when that window's open, you got to go through it. If you don't, it might not open back up again. So if that's what they want, and that's what they want, and people want to believe that and think they can help themselves. But trust me, if you run up on the wrong person that's been doing these things and know what they're doing, it may be sad for you because you don't know what they've been through and how they're going to take it out on you.
You don't know what I know. And that's
right.
that's the whole premise. That I see that they're judging this based upon some nobody that fought some mixed martial artist or some jiu-jitsu guy who was a nobody. Or they may have been a somebody, but they're not really what they project themselves to be. And that's like the guy from China.
You have the 5 guys who are blind and they all touch the elephant in a different space. The one that's got the tail thinks that's the end all be all. This is definitely the elephant. The one that's got the trunk is like, nah, it's like this. The one that's got the leg is like, nah, it's like this. The one that's laying on the back is like, nah, this thing is big and it's round. This is it. It's all matters of perception from different positions and different things. That so-called nobody might be a somebody to somebody else in another space. But in that setting, based on what they're pursuing, they aren't anybody. I'm somewhere, I'm nobody to somebody. It's okay. I know I'm somebody to somebody, I'm somebody to myself. So it's, I could go to Indonesia and be over there with certain people, and I think the true masters would respect me, even with music. I used to say, when my music got to the level of my martial arts, then I know I was doing something. And now it is. So I could take my music anywhere in the world. Same thing like the martial arts. I ain't talking about anywhere in the world and challenge people. Right. I'm talking about I can get in and blend with people, and the people that are true in themselves in the crafts and things, they're going to respect me. The ones that aren't, they're going to ask questions. I had the unfortunate reputation in traveling circles of being the guy that people wanted to try all the time. Baba Kalinda, God rest him, used to always tease me about that all the time. He said, son, why do people always want to try you? Because they didn't think, because I'm pretty mild-mannered, that I knew what I knew until I got tired of them and got put in a situation where I had to just really check somebody. And then you found out on whatever level. And then it was too late. So I've matured past that now. There's psychologies that people try to draw you out and do different things. Because something like that could really be detrimental to you. That ego for myself doesn't have the higher consciousness in it. And that can get you hurt or can get you killed. I don't have that to prove. These young boys get out here, they can flip their feet around and they're doing fight choreography with their self-defense stuff. Okay, that's fine. Now, if you ask me, I'm going to talk to you about it. But if you don't, I love the art. I'm going to try to stay away from it. But if you ask me, I'm going to tell you, that's fight choreography. That's for a movie. You're not going to get to do that on nobody. You grabbing somebody by the elbow, you flipping over like it. I seen one guy one time. I know there's other people. He was a police officer. I'm going to send the clip to you, Sifu. He was smooth. This dude was scraping this machete out, and when to strike, he did the
I saw that video. Yes. He flipped him.
He flipped him with his arm like that. But that's rare. That's rare. That's a man that's got real skill. So you don't see that often anymore. Not to say that these people don't exist, but I don't know. I can't even put it in to say if he had ego. He had to be relaxed.
Oh yeah, because he had to be reading it. He had to be reading it.
He walked in and timed it, bloom, flipped him over, disarmed him. So what about that? What about the person talking about every martial arts? What if you met a guy like him? I live down here in North Carolina. These are some of the baddest grapplers. Thank you, God, for helping me remember. I'm going to say it on film. These are some of the baddest grapplers I've seen in my life. Bring some of these other people that talk all these things about grappling to North Carolina. Different world. These guys live, eat, and breathe grappling on the street and in the gym. So it's according to the context. But then I met this guy in prison that taught me his jab and his uppercut. It's vicious, but every situation he resolved with physicality. When the pressure came on, it became physical. So how evolved are you if everything has to be resolved physically? Physically, I seen this guy. He had to been in his 40s, almost 50s, do a handstand, go halfway down in the handstand and hold it for 15 seconds. Then push yourself back up and jump back on the floor. Now, there's people in capoeira that can do that. That's mainstream for capoeira. This is a regular warrior. But everything he resolved was physical. You're going to meet your match after a while.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't find another way to navigate it, then what are you going to be able to do? That's just the way I see it. I don't want everything to be physical because I can't beat everybody. And I'm okay to say that. I don't want to beat everybody. I don't want to challenge everybody. I want to learn and grow. And then if it's necessary for me to use the physical portion of my self-preservation to be fluent at it, shut it down as quick as possible, if it's necessary, But aside from that, I'm not the person that I try to challenge every day is me. Not if I'm better than, Seafood Grady doing such and such or anybody else. It's me. And that's how I grow. So now I thank you again. And I pray that this expands into other things. I have no qualms with these people if that's how they want to approach things. But everything has an inroad to it. Every approach has an inroad to it. If they're making money because they're promoting these people. You can edit lists if you want. If you don't, I love and respect Evander Holyfield, but I think you shouldn't have had that last fight. So this guy's bouncing around like he beat Holyfield. You didn't beat Holyfield. You didn't fight him in his prime. You couldn't have touched him in his prime.
True that.
Come on, stop. You need accolades that bad that you fight this man who's out of his time. He's out of his time in his season now. And he was stumbling around on his own. And then you just, that's cruddy, man. That's cruddy. Now you could say, well, he shouldn't have got in there. You didn't beat Holyfield, though. Holyfield's different than Tyson. Now, if it had been Mike Tyson, he would have never beat. But they're two different people. They both had skill, but they're two different people. Roy Jones was at the top of his thing. But when he got in there, even for the little demonstration thing with Mike Tyson, you could see Tyson pulling him back and showing him respect. Because if he had let loose, it might have been something different.
Right.
They're not taking from Roy Jones. I respect both of them. But I believe Roy knew that too. And I would say it to the man, if I saw Roy Jones, I respect both of them highly. So to go and build a reputation on people who's beyond their time, come on, man. You caught Evander Holyfield when he ain't boxing anymore now. And you what? In your that's like I'm talking about basketball. I'm not playing ball with these boys. They're touching the top of the backboard, Seafood. Playing basketball with these boys. Even if I got a good game. No. I ain't got nothing to prove. That's that ego thing. The more people feel like they got to prove something, the more you're going to put yourself out there in jeopardy. Because the right type of situation is going to bait you in sooner or later. It's going to bait you in. And then you're going to get in there, and then you're not going to be able to get out. Whether it's physically, a guy at a job in Delaware, these two maintenance guys got into it, and they met down the street. The dude hit him in his nose, left him down in the street. See? So now what? Over ego. So I don't need it that bad. Or somebody come to me and say, you know, Seafood Grady, such and such, such and such. Can you beat Grady? Grady's my brother. He's my younger brother. So I don't even look at him in them terms. And if he decided to do something to hurt me, I will walk away. Because that's what you do with your younger brother. Sit down. Get out of here. Leave me alone. You just lost your mind for a minute. That's what you do. But that's love and respect. Right. Again, it's how you're cultivating yourself. And I want to leave as much positive things as I can. I'm not looking at this euphoric thing that's not reasonable, but that's just my approach to life. Because then the things that came through me can live on. The destructive things, people don't want to stay with that long because it just breeds more destruction. If you think about the destructive things that people did, you just think about more destructive things. You know, then you're trying to get out of it and you're feeling bad and, you know, I don't want that. That's not necessary to me. I'd rather help somebody or say, you know, I look at all these people I've lost in the last couple of years here for whatever, COVID or whatever. There's been some fantastic martial artists left. Rico Guy, swords master, Aikido master out of New York. He left about the same time Baba Kalindi did. Baba Kalindi's a student, fantastic martial artist. Cliff, fantastic martial artist. It's been about 10 guys almost, and big encyclopedias. And we're all energetic beings, so that energy is left this physical space. So if you're on another level, you ain't got no access to that no more. I don't need that. I thank you. You know, I pray that I answered the questions. It helps. I hope that when you look at it, that, you know, it can be put out to where people can grow something from it, and it can connect me with some other people. That's my personal desire, that other people who connect with you can say, hey, and if you don't mind me just leaving this, if anybody wants to reach out to me, you can reach me at Born, BORN, Born A as in Apple, Born a Teacher at gmail.com. They can reach out to me if they're interested.
So BORN?
BORN A, Born a Teacher at gmail.com.
All right. I'll put that up on the thing in the comments or in the description. Reach out to you. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure. We covered everything.
You too, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we have. So here we go with this in closing. See, that's the process of yin and yang. When it says, pay attention to the slightest change between full and empty. This is what the Tai Chi scrolls, the Tai Chi Song of 13 Pasha says. So if you're paying attention to the slightest change, you know we've lost momentum, we've covered everything, you can feel it, and it's time for it to close.
Yep.
That's a life process. If you try to push it any further, then you might taint what was there before. We got to learn this. So that's what I'm talking about, applying the Tai Chi principles. Pay attention to the slightest change between full and empty. We went through all the processes of our yin and yangs, through all of this, and now it's time for it to close and settle. So that's why I'm talking about how I use the principles in life. Because if you don't, you get a different result. And it might not be something that you need at the time. It might take something that it takes time to reconfigure, or, you know, and you would have never got that if you paid attention. When you talk about, they say tinging in the listening energy. Tinging. Ting, right. That's part of the listening energy. Not just the physical touch, but the interaction and atmospheric.
Mhm.
When is it? What do you feel? What pressures do you feel, psychologically or physically? That's the higher levels, is learning how to team with environments and knowing when it's where it's at, what it should be, your place in it. We covered everything we can cover. You know, I'm glad to see your face. Glad to be in this opportunity. You know, that's cool, man. You see, I got my little goatee going, man. Uh, uh, let me know when you edit it.